Thanks to everyone for joining us for our webinar on College and Career Readiness Standards, a Roadmap for Legislators. My name is Michelle Ekstrom, and I'm Education Program Director here at NCSL. And we are excited to bring to you today a preview of a great tool that we've put together to assist you in your work on college and career readiness. We actually are about to release a series of publications and this tool to assist legislators and legislative staff in their work of considering and implementing college and career ready standards and assessments. We've prepared for you an FAQ to answer all of your questions about Common Core and the new assessments, a brief on next generation accountability systems, and a case study of Kentucky's work on the Common Core and the role that the legislature played in that process. Those items will be mailed to you, and you should be receiving them next week. And today we wanted to preview for you a new tool that we've put together that is interactive and leads you through everything that you'll need to know or consider as you are working on your new standards and assessments. Today I have with me Dan Thatcher. He's Senior Policy Specialist here at NCSL, and he works on the issue of standards and assessments, and he's also the architect of this tool that we're about to unveil. He's going to give you a tour of what you will find and how this tool can be useful to you in your work. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who will share with you a preview of this new tool that we have.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you to all of you who have joined us today, whether it's the morning or afternoon, excuse me, or lunchtime. And quick apology, I am recovering from a cold, so if I cough or have a coughing fit, I apologize. And with that, I would also like to thank the Hewlett Foundation, which provided the support for this roadmap. And a little bit of background on this roadmap. It has been a work in the making for over a year now, and we have included a focus group team of legislators and legislative staff and those who are involved with the work of implementing college and career readiness standards to provide input and direction as to its content and how to make it most useful. We have had a couple of iterations of the actual framework for it, and this is something that we have now for you that will be something I'm excited about to connect all the content on the NCSL website as it relates to this issue, as well as all the content within the roadmap. So I think that we will just progress through this slide here. That's my picture. And for those of you who do not know me, I think I may know all of you, though. And then please ask questions at any point in time through the chat box, but I'm going to go ahead and jump over into the toolkit and let you see what's in there. And I think that you will see that it will provide a lot of resources and hopefully answer a lot of questions for you. Now, if everything worked as planned, you will see NCSL's homepage. And at this point, I will show you how to actually get to the toolkit. At some point next week, when the toolkit or the roadmap goes live, we will have a link to it up here on our homepage. But for those moments when it's not there on the homepage, it can be found under our education portal, which you get to by going to Research and Education. And to the right of the screen, you'll see the issues that we have on our website under Education. If you click on Standards and Assessments, it will take you to the portal page for the information that we provide under this topic. And right here in the top left-hand corner is the Standards Roadmap, and that's where you will get to this tool. So you should see on your screen at this moment what is the home page or landing page of the roadmap with a little bit of text explaining how it works and what you'll find and whatnot. So before I get too much into the component parts of it, I would like to give cognizance to the fact that there are other roadmaps out there on implementing college and career readiness standards, some even written for state legislatures. But this one differs in a very important way. And that is that I found with most of the roadmaps that are out there, dig really deep into the policy components, and rightly so, that need to be considered almost not at a legislative level, but even at the school level, the SEA level, or the LEA level. This roadmap is more in cognition that legislators and legislatures serve as the design architects of the statewide school system. Constitutionally so. That's every state constitution gives the fiduciary responsibility over education to state legislatures. So I think of this and this roadmap as a tool for an architect, really, who would be designing a building, a grand building that doesn't pay as much attention to perhaps the carpeting, the color on the walls, whatnot, but all those important things that an architect would need to consider in designing a building. So that's not to say that there aren't important subjects and materials on the interior of the building. That's there, but what I found missing in a lot of roadmaps is the cognizance that there's a lot of questions around the actual structure, and these structures is given its strength through state statute, or through appropriations, or through the convening power of the state legislature. And so these topics are covered within this roadmap. So if we scroll down to the bottom of the roadmap landing page, you'll see that these ideas are part of the guiding principles that drove the design of this. What role does the legislature play in implementing this policy? And again, that goes back to the role that legislatures play in providing the framework and the infrastructure through statute, through appropriations, convening power, et cetera. What local resources are at play and need to be considered to further implement whatever policy is discussed herein, and the timeline. And then what mechanisms are available for state legislatures to ensure that the design intent is carried out by those occupying the building or those implementing the policies on the ground. So these are some of the questions that will guide it and the principles that guide the creation and that you'll find answered throughout the toolkit. Now, the toolkit is designed to give as much information in one place as possible. And to do that, we have these collapsible guideposts. And you should be able to see on your screen how you can open and close each one to drill down into deeper levels under the topic. So I'll just go through these guideposts real quick. And the first is just why college and career readiness? Why don't we call this Common Core State Standards roadmap? This answers this question. It's because if you go to our guidepost 1 about college and career readiness standards, you can have information at your fingertips as to academic and content performance standards in general, and then a primer on college and career readiness, how it's defined, and then how under that larger rubric, Common Core State Standards have been developed. Now, as states are developing their own standards under this broad rubric of college and career readiness standards, we have here information on why college and career readiness. And then we also have information on developing and formulating standards, and then these standards adoption processes. Now, I'm not going to get into detail with each one of these right now, but just to let you know that these resources are here for you. And on each page, there will also be, at the bottom, resources other than NCSL resources, by and large, that address all of these topics. So that's our first guidepost, is just an overview of college and career readiness standards generally. Then to really the meat of the tool, which is the implementation of them. Now, to get into the component parts of the implementation, we have broken it down into identifying those policies that are key to implementing college and career readiness standards, the legislative role, the resource capacity, and strategic planning and communications needed to implement statewide college and career readiness standards. Again, here's represented the design principles behind this tool. And under each component part are key questions, the addressing of the legislative capacity, et cetera. Resource capacity really addresses the costs associated with implementing academic standards, and there's numerous resources there. Now, the next big guidepost in this is this notion of feedback loops, and then I'm actually going to skip to this page, the last guidepost, which provides resources for each component part of implementing college and career readiness standards, the accountability systems that are tied to it, assessments, college and career readiness. And here you have a number of resources that we've identified through different organizations that we find useful and reliable and interesting. And so this will be here for you on those different parts. Now, to dig into the tool a little bit, I'm going to go back to where I said it's the real meat of the tool, and that is the area under implementing college and career readiness standards, and this notion of aligning key policies to college and career readiness standards. So this is our landing page for key policy areas to consider when aligning college and career readiness standards. And this is, again, just a demonstration for you of the resources and information that we have for you to consider in implementing college and career readiness standards. And so there's this notion of horizontal versus vertical alignment of policies. We have information on that. And then what policies actually should you consider when developing the infrastructure to implement college and career readiness standards. So we have here a graphic that shows the different policies that are most often addressed or considered or need to be considered to implement standards statewide. So we can even drill down deeper, and we'll do that by going to, for example, assessments. What would one need to consider from a legislative point of view with assessments? Now, this is a good point to say that this toolkit will be going live next week. This is a preview, and we're still putting in some compatibility and usability components to this toolkit. So you'll see next week is that this page is full of information. There's it's very long, but next week what you'll see is that it will be broken down by just the headline. You can click on the headline and more information will pop up. So that way you can go to one page and you can dig down and open up whatever headline you need to get information from, and that you won't be overwhelmed by text. But for right now, I just want to show an example of the type of information and the detail that you can get by using this tool. So first we have information on college and career readiness assessments, or what we call next generation assessments, and information on PARCC and Smarter Balance, which fall under the category of next generation assessments, why they're different, what needs to be considered about by the legislative, from the legislative perspective, and then a description of those two assessments, and then to give cognizance to the questions we get most frequently from state legislators and staff on this topic is state requirements around participation in the assessment consortia, and the flow in and out of state participation in both consortia. And here we have information on that. We have a table showing what states belong to which consortia in summer 2011, and then which states belong to which consortia today, and a map showing the participation today. And to drill down even deeper into that movement in and out of the assessment consortia, we go to each state that has exited their partnership with the consortia with links to the resource or the source documents that, or news stories or whatever it was that provided this knowledge for us of the state exit out. And you can get every detail that you would like to about how states have interacted with the consortia, the assessment consortia, over time. So again, this is a demonstration of the level of detail that we can get down into as one component part of the overall scheme of implementing college and career readiness standards assessments, next generation assessments being one of those. There are alternative assessment consortia. We have information on that. One thing that is also that also should be on legislators' minds when considering any legislation or decisions around assessments is the federal laws and rules and regulations governing assessments under ESEA. And so you're getting into more detail. We have different laws broken down, federal laws governing what types and when and frequency and grade levels and content that states must provide in their assessments to comply with federal law. And then we have key questions to consider generally about assessments, and of course numerous resources that we will always add to that. And this is one thing I'd like to say now too is this is a document that will live on and is alive. It is a Frankenstein, and we will continue to add to this, make corrections when needed, when changes have happened in the states. If you have any questions whatsoever and you do not find the answer here, we will put it here. This will be a one-stop compendium of resources and information for you on college and career readiness standards. So that is a preview of this roadmap. And if there's any questions, I don't know if we've had any questions while I've been going through this, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And also, I would like to add, I love feedback. If you have thoughts or suggestions to improve upon this, please let me know. I want to make this for you, for legislators and legislative staff, to be as user-friendly for you as possible. So if I can do that, let me know. Or if there's information you want in this, let me know. I'm here to serve you. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Dan. That was really helpful, and it's really exciting that we're going to have this tool available to all of you to be able to answer your questions and provide the information that you need. So we do have a couple of questions in the queue, and I wanted to get to them. And you may have answered these, but go ahead and answer them again just to reiterate these points. So how is this tool specifically tailored for legislators, and how is it different from tools provided by other organizations or advocacy groups around these issues?
Thank you. So that's a great question. Excuse me. To go back to my analogy of legislators acting as architects of a complex building, let's say that, well, going back to the example of assessments, at the state level, the legislature may say that we have college and career readiness as a goal, and we have standards to guide the system toward that end, and we need to measure students' proficiency and progress toward that end. So the statutes say each LEA must administer the statewide assessment that is aligned to college and career readiness assessments. But that's really about the extent to which the statutes perhaps have articulated that. Well, that means that the SEA in choosing an assessment can have a wide array of options. So let's say, for example, that the SEA chooses an assessment provider whose assessment is a computer adaptive assessment. Well, that's great, but are these statutes and did the legislature conceive of a statewide assessment system that is ready to provide a computer adaptive assessment system because that would require that there's the computing capacity and computers in the schools and the bandwidth and all the associated parts of implementing a computer-based assessment. And that could require certainly an appropriation directed toward that purpose of providing that technological infrastructure. So that's an example where when the legislature goes about saying that the SEA shall provide a statewide assessment to measure college and career readiness standards, and for purposes of federal law too, to comply with federal law, that the legislature may consider beforehand whether they want that assessment system to be computer adaptive or more performance-based, et cetera, whether it needs to even go to that detail, and then also be cognizant that there may be an associated appropriation required to provide that technological infrastructure. So that is the kind of the touchstones that I've tried to pull out in designing this, so that we're not necessarily getting into the nitty-gritty of how computer adaptive assessments work, but to be cognizant that they're out there, that it's an option, that there are things that state legislatures need to consider if that's the direction that the state will go.
Great. We have another question. Do you have or can you include links to federal laws that are pertinent to these topics?
Absolutely. So, for example, on this assessments page, I have citations to each to specific laws in federal statute. Now, as time passes and I have the time, I will add links to each section so that you can go directly to the code for yourself. That is definitely something that will be part of this.
Next question. Why is this an online tool versus a written publication? And will you be creating a written publication?
That's a great question, because we have gone back and forth on this question in so much that we have, to our focus groups, asked about this and asked about what's the best, most useful way for legislators on the go to access this information. And we have gotten feedback that both is preferable, but if one over the other, an online version would be best. We hear all the time, we've heard this from our focus groups too, that legislators like a link to send to staff or to constituents. And so here we have a link that legislators can use to send to who they want to.
A related question, did you have an advisory group that guided your creation that included legislators? We did.
In fact, we had 4 legislators, I believe, 2 and legislative staff. 2 legislators and 2 legislative staff.
Okay. It says, I see here that you have links to outside resources. How have you balanced the information to ensure that you have accounted for the differing opinions on these topics?
The way my approach to that is that I include everything. Now, there's a qualification to that, and it's a judgment call on my part. But everything within the mainstream, shall we say? So, a good example is under the part of this part of this toolkit that addresses the costs associated with implementing college career readiness standards. There have been competing assessments of what the costs will actually be to states and what the costs they'll incur from implementing these standards. And these are from both sides of the debate on Common Core. So I try to, and I mean, it's just a matter of practice that, of course, we would include resources from each side of the issue, and of course, we don't make any decisions for anyone. We provide the resources and let yourself make the conclusions you'd like to.
Two more questions. First of all, can this be used for implementation of any state's unique standards, or is this specifically geared towards states that are only using Common Core or Park and Smarter Balanced?
That's another great question. This is designed broadly for states implementing standards, whether they've designed them on their own or whether they're implementing the Common Core state standards. So as I showed at the very beginning of the tool, there's actually information on formulating and developing academic standards and the processes by which states adopt academic standards. And so this is meant to be a roadmap for implementing standards broadly, but more specifically those standards that drive the statewide education system toward that end design of college and career readiness.
And one final question. You displayed key questions and policy considerations on the page that you showed. Will you have those key questions and policy considerations for all of your pages where you talk about major policies that need to be considered around implementation?
I will. That is one of the key features of this roadmap, that under each one of those major policy buckets, that there are key questions and considerations. And these have been, in some instances, fleshed out with our focus group and have been collected from the number of dozens and dozens of information requests that I've received from you, from state legislators and staff about this topic. And so it's if other legislators and staff are asking these questions, my thought is that there's probably many others out there who have similar questions.
Great. Well, seeing no further questions, I just wanted to mention again that we will have a suite of both publications and this online tool available to you. You will be receiving a packet of information within the next week or so that will include those publications, and also will have information about this tool that you'll be able to access. Please feel free to use it to share with media in your state, constituents, your legislative staff, your legislators that you work with, anyone who you think might be able to use this to answer their questions and to guide and provide assistance to state legislators as they're working on this particular topic. As always, please feel free to contact us here at NCSL. You can either contact me, Michelle Ekstrom, or Dan Thatcher. We both are here to assist you with these topics and happy to help you in any way that we can. With that, we conclude our webinar.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.